Hello, Sujana. Am I pronouncing your name right?
You are, yeah.
Sujana, okay. I'm here to talk to you because next Tuesday, on August 9th, 2022, people will be watching this in 2040, who knows? You and your fellow Coventry poet, if I may call you so, John Bernard, I pronounce his name as well, Bernard, will be after visiting Cork, you'll be in Clonakilty, a small market town in West Cork, Ireland, as part of a Twin Cities exchange. And you will be reading from your work. I'm not sure, does that mean you'll be reading poems, or are you, because you have many arrows to your bow, you're a researcher, you're
I like that, more arrows. I like arrows better than feathers, actually.
Well, there could be feathers on the arrow. And you also write short stories?
I've written short stories in the past, and I've also written essays, and a few of them have been published, but my focus at the moment is very much on poetry and plays. That's what's been my focus the last few years. Okay. And in my time when I'm in Cork, I'm planning to share some of my poems mainly, more than the play side of things. Yeah.
I was really intrigued that you're poet in residence, or you are or have been poet in residence for Brandon Marsh, which is that's a nature reserve, and for Quarry, I think. So that, you know, I don't think there's many, or maybe I just don't see. I haven't seen evidence of many poets in residence at nature reserves. Would you be one of the few in the UK?
I believe so. So Brandon Marsh is a nature reserve within a wider sort of trust called Warwickshire Wildlife Trust, and they have, I think, about 42 various spots across the Midlands that they've preserved and protected. And nature reserve is one of them, and it used to be a quarry, and so it's got various little pools scattered around, and it's a haven for bird watchers. Okay. And last year I was asked to be a write-in-residence there, and like you said, it's not something that happens very often, and Warwickshire Wildlife Trust hadn't had a write-in-residence before, and I hadn't been a write-in-residence at a nature reserve before. So in the beginning, I was talking to the team at Warwickshire Wildlife Trust, and we were like, right, how do we go about this? What do we do, you know? And the beauty of it was, because it was new, it has never really been done, we could shape it the way we wanted to shape it. And it was part of a bigger poetry festival called Contain Strong Language, and it had a very strong theme about nature and conservation and things. And I was really delighted to be, you know, a write-in-residence there, because I've been a volunteer for Warwickshire Wildlife Trust for a number of years now, and looking at hedgehog conservations in particular. So yeah, so it was a good experience. I spent quite a lot of time over summer there, just soaking it in, just taking time. And I've always enjoyed being in nature. I've studied permaculture, I've looked at sustainability in great detail, but I'd never really been a bird watcher before. And as a part of the residency, I've sort of got the bug a little bit, so I'm learning as I go along. And some of the pieces I wrote was about birds and the communications that happens within a reserve, that kind of thing. So yeah, it was lovely.
Yeah, it's funny because I saw that, you know, the festival is called Contain Strong Language, and then you were talking about birds, and you know, so the strong language part, it doesn't particularly refer to swear words or something like that. It's
no, I think like it's more about strong opinions. Yes. You know, opinion.
Okay, now you're frozen. Okay, now we're both unfrozen again. I would want to ask you a little bit about, because you said you studied permaculture, and obviously the thing with nature is that, for, you know, you as humans who are not, I speak for myself, that we're not sort of totally interconnected with nature for long periods of time, or with that background, we only see sort of isolated species. We see a bee, we see a kingfish, or I never see a kingfisher, but anyway, we see one thing and we do not see the connections, and that's, I think, is a problem, because people who don't mind if nature is being destroyed, do not see that apart from single species, there's whole networks being destroyed.
Yeah.
Do you have, as an as somebody focusing on nature very much, do you have sort of insights in how we could teach people to see networks or ecosystems rather than isolated species?
Wow, that's a really big question and lots to unpack there. But I think, coming back to that question of even people who are doing the destruction, they often think, oh, it's not going to affect me, and therefore it doesn't matter. And I think for us, all of us, I think it's important to remember that we are all a very small part of the wider ecology that exists around us, and anything that we do will have an impact on everything else, the butterfly effect kind of a thing. And the whole premise of permaculture also is a permanent culture. It's how do we live in a way that's permanent? How do you create a culture that's permanent? So it's not just about, often people think, oh, it's just for farmers, it's just for people who grow food. But the way I like to think of it is, and the way it's going about, the way permaculture is being promoted now is very much about, it's everything we can do on a small scale as well. And to think about, even the way, for example, we shop, or the way we buy clothes or don't buy clothes, and mend our clothes, even little things. I think so I think just thinking in terms of, when we say we throw away rubbish, throw away where? There's nowhere for the rubbish to go. Like we need to be contained in this earth, So just thinking about the choices we make, the actions we make, and just remembering that we are all connected, I think makes a big difference. And it sounds really basic when I say it like that, but like you say, we are disconnected, aren't we? Especially if we're living in towns, or even we might be close to nature, but if we don't know what's going on there, it becomes a place that we fear rather than we feel a part of. And I think to put it very simply, I think just remembering that we are part of a bigger network of ecology, and our actions, they do have impact. The choices we make, how we spend our money, how we live our lives, like, for example, not putting out lights at night, the garden lights at night that go on, like, we're just creating light pollution, and we don't think of that. It looks nice in our garden, but we don't think that the hedgehogs might get really confused because of that. And of course those are simple things, and then beyond that there's a lot more, like people destroying the Amazon. Of course that's a bigger thing. People taking private jets, of course that's a bigger thing, and that our little bits of recycling isn't going to solve. But equally, that doesn't mean we don't take responsibility for the little things we do.
Well, that was a great answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're also a researcher, you say on your website. Website link will be below this video. What exactly do you research?
Wow, now that's there's a term recently that I learned. It's called a swiggly career. So when your career is like swiggles a lot, and that's very much been my experience. So I used to work in the third sector, as in I used to work for international charities, and there I was working on a national development project. So I grew up in Nepal primarily. So I worked in Nepal. I was working in India for a while. I worked in Sri Lanka, and so on. And my focus was primarily in the third sector, looking at, again, sustainable growth, sustainable agriculture, poverty alleviation, and things like that. So a lot of my research centered around that. And until about 2 years ago, I was researching the impact of natural disasters on people of various backgrounds, especially women and minority groups. But fast forward more recently now, I am researching IT systems, which is quite different, I suppose, to what I was doing in the third sector, but it's still, at the end of a IT service are humans. So it's trying to make better IT systems so that all of us are more safer, are more comfortable using various things that we need to do, because everything is digitized now, right? So at the moment I lead research for a project for the tax office, believe it or not. So just looking at how to improve the IT services that are available, especially in the public sector.
That doesn't create sort of inner conflict in you?
Inner conflict how?
Well, a lot of people are sort of if you ask, you know, they're conflicted about paying taxes, because on the one hand, you don't want to pay tax because you want to to hoard all your money. And at the same time, some of us realize that, you know, a lot of public services are paid from taxes. But then on the other hand, you also realize that there's a lot of rich people, well,
not paying a victim,
not paying taxes where they should.
But I think that comes back to the thing we were talking about, feeling that interconnected, and also thinking, what can we do without being jaded about, oh, but they're not paying their taxes, why do I have to pay my taxes? But yeah, people have conflicting choices. When I speak to people about whatever, so when I do my research, when I'm looking at a particular system or IT service, and I'm talking to people about, this is what we've designed, what do you think? They want to have a go about, oh, but HMRC is this, and they don't do this, and na. And yes, absolutely, I'm happy to listen to that and then pass it on to the relevant channel. But equally, you know, when we talk about like taxes and things, we're also looking at child benefits, we're also looking at maternity pay, we're also looking at the council payments. So there's a lot of things. So no, I don't have an inner conflict in that, because yes, I understand people have complex feelings around it, but equally my focus here is to make services that are accessible and user-friendly to all of us, regardless of our background, regardless of our abilities, our confidence in using IT services and things. So I feel like I'm making a contribution, while also, you know, recognizing that, of course, people have conflicting emotions, but I'm not trying to ask for money. I'm trying to, when the one time of the year when you have to pay a tax or do your self-assessment, I'm trying to make your life easier, because sometimes it can be really frustrating.
Okay, that's another great answer. You are coming to Ireland, and that will be the first time ever in Ireland, or have you been here before?
I've been to Ireland before, and I feel this close affinity to Ireland, actually. So I've been to Portrush, I've been sort of not, I've not been to the Cork end of it, I've been to the top end of it. I've been to Londonderry, Sligo, and all of that. My father-in-law, who was very dear to me, who passed away quite recently, he was Irish. He grew up near Portrush, and he lived in England for a long time, ever since, you know, so for a long time. But because I felt that connection, and my children are quarter Irish, right? Because my husband's half Irish, and I feel that connection. And so my father-in-law didn't really have an Irish accent, but he could put it on. And he had that Irish humor, like he could just crack a joke about anything and everything. And yes, I feel that affinity to Ireland in that sense. So yeah, I'm really, really glad. I'm really pleased and looking forward to it.
Well, while you're there, you could visit the Crawford Art Gallery in Cork.
Oh, I did not know there was one. I probably should.
Yeah, there's an art gallery, and it's also a college of art.
Okay.
So, okay. Yeah, I don't know the background and the history of the name, but
no, I think the name came from Scotland, because there's a small place called Crawford in Scotland. Okay. But yeah, there must have been the migration to Ireland at some point.
Okay, I really look forward to seeing you in person, and maybe we can talk some more on.
And I really enjoyed having this conversation. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Okay, Tuesday, 9th of August in DeBarra, spoken word.
Enjoy.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank